Hey guys, welcome back to Honest Pop Culture Reviews, and today we're gonna go for a 10 spot because I could just not tell you about these 10 films. Let's not waste any of the time. I'm Jackie K, and these are the top 10 2019 horror films. These films were picked for the best of the best for 2019 because they either delivered the scares, could heighten your senses or stress you out, and or had a frightful analogy at the base of its core. Number 10, Knives Out. Okay, hear me out. Knives Out isn't necessarily a horror film, but I wanted to give it a special shout out on this list. As my niche is horror movies and I don't do a top 10 2019 films, but if I did, it would probably make it in the top 3 along with Endgame and The Joker. And the genre is murder mystery, so I'm including it on this list at the 10 spot because, well, murder. This is the smartest, funniest, and dare I even say sexiest film of 2019. The latter part is mostly due to Captain America playing Ransom, a bad boy grandson in what is probably the hottest knit sweater the audience has collectively ever seen. It's a lot of fun to see the goodest man in America play a bad boy. This film is what would happen if Agatha Christie watched Quentin Tarantino's films while growing up while also enjoying Coen Brothers. It has a great female lead that's playing alongside of James Bond with a southern accent, and although it's weird to see Daniel Craig in a humorous role, once you get past the initial shock, he's really great at it. Don't miss out on this imaginative, twisty, creative murder mystery. You won't feel whole without it. Number 9, The Dead Don't Die. Back in spring, this little indie horror film had a trailer you could end up seeing anywhere. I remember seeing it before Godzilla King of Monsters, a huge blockbuster, and my husband and I looked at one another, we're seeing this film. The only problem was it was showing at independent theaters, which happens with independent films sometimes. And it was really sad to realize considering the star-studded cast, which includes Adam Driver, Bill Murray, Selena Gomez, Chloe Sevigny, and Tilda Swinton. This is a deadpan comedy based around zombies roaming a small town. It takes some weird turns here and there, but the jokes are solid and the cast do a pretty great job remaining dry yet relatable. They react the same way a savvy audience would for a real-life zombie apocalypse.
Really awful. Maybe the worst thing I've ever seen.
What was it, wild animals?
So what are you thinking?
I'm thinking zombies.
What?
You know, the undead. Ghouls.
And if I remember correctly, they even break the fourth wall in one of the best jokes ever written for the screen. This isn't a scary movie by any means, but if it's slipped past your radar, I wanted you all to have the opportunity to learn about it. Watch the trailer. If you enjoy what you see there, you should certainly give the whole film a watch, and it's worth your time if you enjoy black humor. Number 8, Wounds. I just watched Wounds the other day. It's currently available on Hulu, but I ended up watching it somewhere else. It has a bit of a slow start, but if you give it some time, it picks up and delivers as a psychological, gruesome, and disturbing film. I wouldn't call it great, but it did give me the occasional chills. This film is based on the horror novella The Visible Filth, written by Nathan Ballengard, and follows a listless bartender who has wasted his life and seems to be happy slinging beverages in the old bar infested with cockroaches and cheating on his girlfriend by sleeping with his close friend. He's not the best guy, but he's our protagonist, and his story is the one we're following in Wounds. His life turns upside down and he takes everyone around him for the unsettling ride when he picks up a patron's lost phone and answers a text he should have just left alone. Don't let the bad reviews for this one keep you away. The majority of the people who panned it are apparently just too thick to see what our main character's weaknesses really symbolize. Occasionally, a film that isn't subtle while you self-reflect and see your own flaws, that instills a reprimandable fear, is exactly what you need instead of blood and guts. If you're in the mood for something chilly and digs a bit deeper than your regular surface fears, give Wounds a shot. Number 7, Haunt. Currently available on Shudder, which premiered during October, Haunt is the film you'll want to watch every Halloween. It is based around a group of college students trying to find a decent haunted house to get their hormones all riled up, like you do. One way or another, they end up at a haunt out in the middle of nowhere that has a few weird stipulation rules and regulations they have to follow. red flag number 1. But one of the characters actually have half a brain cell and Googled the place first and sees a few reviews and agrees it should be a good haunt. What happens next is a film on how can we kill these kids in a haunted house and scare the living shit out of them in the process. It's not all that original, but it gets the job done. And actually has a higher production value and doesn't use schlocky filmed on a handheld camera from similar films in years past. It's an enjoyable film that may just find its way into your October yearly rotation. It has the perfect amount of gore, horror, and kills to keep you freshly satisfied while looking for something good to eat. I mean watch. Number 6, The Perfection. Another film available on streaming. This particular one on Netflix is nearly the cream of the creme for horror streaming. The Perfection is, well, to be blunt, perfection. I didn't know what I was rightfully getting into when I pressed play after watching the trailer a few times. I wasn't quite sure if I would even enjoy the film or its buggy atmosphere. I swallowed every instinct I had and the bad taste in my mouth that the trailer left and decided to press play. And it blew my mind. I don't want to divulge any of the details of this film because the less you know going into the film, the better experience you'll have watching it, because this is an experience. Not an artsy-fartsy way Mother is. The Perfection is more of a roller coaster, but one of those new age ones that are smooth, fast, and with the perfect twists. If you haven't seen The Perfection yet, please give this female-driven drama horror thrill a shot. You will not be disappointed. Number 5, Child's Play. Okay, here I am again, talking about 2019's Child's Play once more, and only my 3rd video on this channel. And again, I will say there was no need for this film to exist. I really enjoyed the latest direct-to-streaming Chucky films, but this year's Child Play was so much better than I could have ever expected. I was part of the Not My Chucky hashtag on Twitter, but gosh darn it, this was a good Chucky film. If no other Chucky film existed, this would be considered a smart, funny, scary, intuitive film that actually takes a stab at horror through consumerism and is incredibly relevant for the online world we live in right now. I mean, it would have worked great as a Black Mirror or X-Files episode, but here it is as a fully fledged film instead. If this was the first film in the Chucky franchise instead of a reboot, I honestly think it would have slayed at the box office. Once again, if you haven't watched Child's Play yet this year, I highly recommend doing so. Number 4, Velvet Buzzsaw. Holy crap, man, I almost forgot about this film. I mapped out this entire list, and when I was writing about The Perfection, I remembered it isn't actually the best streaming horror film that came out this year, and the reason I nearly forgot was because this film came out in friggin' January. Velvet Buzzsaw is probably overall the best film that debuted on Netflix, a clean, clear number 1 in my book. It is literally Final Destination, but with art and satire and done just damned brilliantly. It has an amazing cast. My main girl Toni Collette is in it. Longtime crush Jake Gyllenhaal kills as an ambiguous pan art critic, and John Malkovich all just slain as their characters. The atmosphere is beautiful yet chilling, characters are shallow yet great, and the kills, oi, muy perfecto. I loved this film so much. I did something that I haven't done since I was a kid. I watched this film twice in the one weekend it came out, pretty much back to back, because I needed to watch the entire masterpiece all over again to see what I missed. If you haven't had a chance to watch Velvet Buzzsaw, I highly recommend you remedy that before the end of the year. I think I've watched it about 5 times since its premiere. This film and The Perfection are, I believe, well worth the payment of Netflix for 1 month, which I mean would equate to about $6 per movie. Check them out, especially Velvet Buzzsaw. You will not regret it. Number 3, Us. Alright, now I'm gonna make an assumption here and say a big part of the population, especially horror fans, have seen Jordan Peele's sophomore's hit, Us. As I run through the script, I realized 2019 was actually a really great year for horror analogies and symbolism, and Peele just hits his out of the park. There are many interesting things about this film that you pick up on a 2nd, 3rd, maybe even a 4th watch. I remember watching that opening scene with the very poignant video cassette tapes, and then watching YouTube breakdowns afterwards, as I do, and seeing how many of even my favorite hosts miss some of the very clear foreshadowing. I mean, that single shot pretty much mapped out the entire film, and that was all done throughout showing a specific selection of VHS tapes, which just blows my mind. Us is a great thriller with the essence of horror spattered throughout it, but I wouldn't consider it a full-fledged horror film as much as Peele's freshman film Get Out is. The film is a great one, and having an entire main cast composed of incredibly talented color actors while becoming one of the most popular top of box office films in 2019 really makes me excited for today's horror game and the future of what we can expect from these new horror directors. Number 2, Midsummer. Another sophomoric film on this list, this time from Ari Aster, who came out with the hit Hereditary 2 years ago. Both films distributed by A24, is just an incredible film by itself, not even as a horror film. It contrasts such terrifying imagery against the broad sunny daylight of the beautiful backdrop of Sweden. And when you're watching this movie, don't take anything for granted, especially the items that are decorating the apartments in the beginning, the wall murals in the village. Every single thing is placed there deliberately. Midsummer makes you experience every range of deep negative emotion throughout its runtime. And then at the end of its horrifying journey, you share this sense of relief and completeness with the protagonist. The colors, music, scenery, and incredible acting all play a huge role in what director Aster was able to accomplish in this film. It speaks to you on a higher, sadder level, and the fear it instills in you is surrounded by grief, loneliness, and despair, which I think are some of the scariest things out there. Midsummer is only barely beat out by the #1 film, and I want you all to take a night to watch it and just feel your feelings. I believe we'll be able to expect really great things from Aster in the future, as his first 2 films have just blown me out of the water, and the rest of the public, with good reason. Before we reveal our very well-deserved #1 2019 horror film, I want to talk quickly about 2 honorable mentions. Honorable mentions. It, Chapter 2. Alright, don't come at me in the comments. This isn't really a good film. It apparently just has a hell of a hard time sticking the final chapter with the adults. Parts of it were just humorous when they shouldn't have been, but I have to give credit where credit is due, and It, Chapter 2, put butts in seats and got a hell of an opening weekend paycheck. It, Chapter 1 and 2, along with Peele's Get Out and Us, are helping horror become popular again, and mainstream. It's not just horror nuts going to see these films, and that brings both good and bad things with it. I appreciate Chapter 2 for what it was able to give us, which is the opportunity for more mainstream horror films in the future because they can be profitable, even if they suck. Crawl. I actually had Crawl within this list at one point, but then I had to bump it out after I remembered about Velvet Buzzsaw. So, I'm sorry, Crawl. But this was a good film. After you get past the first 40 minutes or so, and yes, that's a long time to give a horror movie to pick up, but I gotta give it props. It's a good creature film when it does get going. I will admit, there was even a time when I let out a little shriek, so hey, it's gotta be mentioned if it actually made me scream. FYI, there is a dog in this film. Yes, I paused it, Googled it, and once I saw it didn't die in the film, I continued on. No problems there. And he was actually needed for the parts of the film, so they didn't just put her there to pull at the heartstrings. She was actually intricate to the plotline. So. Alright, are you guys ready for the #1 spot of 2019? Drumroll, please. #1, Ready or Not. Ready or Not was everything a horror film needs to be. It was clever, funny, had the kills, and of course had a badass final girl. This film takes hide and seek to a new level when a middle-class bride marries into the top 1% who gained their profits and riches through board games like a Hasbro empire. Every time someone marries into the family, though, they have to play a specific game picked by, I guess you could say, a demon who granted the riches and gaming empire to the grandfather over half a century ago. Some of the games are easy and benign, but one game gets selected every few decades that results in a death. a penance for their lavish lifestyle, and our lucky girl Grace, played by a personal favorite actress, Samara Weaving, also seen in other horror gems like Mayhem and The Babysitter, draws hide and seek. This leads to an amazing 90 minutes of film with high tension, twists and turns, jokes, as Adam Brody can't help but be amazing comedic relief, and an ending that makes you applaud it. It even does such a great job sticking the ending, we could easily see a sequel expanding further from it. And I don't want to spoil anything. Maybe we can do a full review and ending explain with where a franchise could continue this, but if there is one film you need to watch before the end of 2019, it is Ready or Not. The story, writing, acting, all of it's going to blow you away, and you're going to have an amazing time watching it. I know I did. Well, that's our list. Wait a minute. Hold up. I went and saw another film this weekend. After I wrote, scripted this whole thing, filming it now after I watched it. I want to give a nice little special shout out to Black Christmas 2019. Guys, I don't know how, I don't know why, this was a fun film. I went and saw it with one of my girlfriends. It pushes feminism out there, femininity, feminism, all that great strong stuff. Has some great final girls in it. It isn't necessarily like its original or the original remake either that came out in 2006. But it's fun. It did a lot of different things in it than those original first two films, and I think it's really relevant for today's time and age. I would highly suggest watching it next Christmas when it's out on digital, and maybe sooner if you really want to, but triple honorable mention, Black Christmas 2019. Now, that's our list. It was a beefy boy today. Thanks for sticking around until the very end. We'll see you here next week when we cover another top 5 horror movies, because I'm not gonna do another top 10. Top 5 horror movies themselves, and who knows? Please like, share, and subscribe. Help me build this channel. I've already gotten a nice amount of views on my first 2 videos, and I hella appreciate it. Leave a comment below on what you think was the best 2019 horror film, and if you've seen any of my top 10. You've been watching Honest Pop Culture Reviews, and I'm your host, Jackie K, keeping pop culture honest.